Welcome to the Rainmaker Multiplier on Demand, a podcast for leading financial professionals, or rainmakers, and their teams that offer support for securing a successful future. From marketing help to staffing structure, listen and subscribe for actionable insights from advisors and skilled professionals alike.
Hello, I'm Matt Seitz, Chief Marketing Officer at C2P. Dave Allison and I recently had a powerful conversation with Jeff Woods, founder of AI Leadership and author of The AI-Driven Leader. There was so much to talk about that we've split this conversation into two parts. In this episode, we explore how financial professionals and business leaders can start thinking more strategically about AI, not just as a tool for productivity, but as a true thought partner in decision-making and leadership. Jeff walks us through what it means to build an AI board, how to train your team effectively, and why the future of growth will depend on your ability to lead with vision and adaptability in an AI-driven world. We hope you enjoy.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Rainmaker Multiplier on Demand. I'm your host today, Dave Allison. I'm also joined by my good buddy and partner, Matt Seitz, as co-host. Matt, welcome.
Thanks, Dave. Good to be here.
Definitely. And we have a repeat guest on the podcast today, Jeff Woods. Yeah, there you go, Jeff. Actually, there's not many repeat guests, so this is awesome to have you here. Jeff is the founder of AI Leadership, where he helps business leaders harness artificial intelligence to think more strategically and lead with clarity. With a background in executive leadership and coaching, he's passionate about guiding professionals through the evolving intersection of technology and human performance. Jeff is the author of The AI-Driven Leader, and that's how we got connected the first time. I mean, Jeff, when you were about to launch the book, you joined us on a podcast where we were geeking out about kind of all things AI, and I just felt that the message that you were sharing just massively resonated with me because, I remember sharing with you, like, I was totally doubling down on AI in our business, but the rest of our team, they weren't quite keeping up, whether it was our executive and leadership team, great folks like, Matt and the team that we have, all the way through all the team members that we have at C2P and our wealth management firms. And, we did a podcast, we were sharing some of the things that, we were doing, how we were using AI, but, what really kind of jumped out at us is we had you come in and do a training for our team. And man, I can't tell you how much of a game changer that's been. I think that was the light bulb or the epiphany moment for most of our team members. I mean, even Matt, you just had a team member on the marketing side, Dustin. He came up to me. We just did our national event this week, and he came up to me and he was just like, "Hey, I have to say thank you. Like, I know you were the driving engine originally, and when you brought Jeff in to do some training, it just, really got my mind in a better place." And he said it's been one of the most transformational things he's done, both professionally and personally, being able to double down and harness the power that AI can have to make us more productive, more efficient. And so, Jeff, I just want to thank you for that. Like I said, it's part of our daily culture now, and you are a big driving force behind it.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Definitely. So, as I mentioned earlier, we had you on the podcast a little over a year ago, and we were discussing how to leverage AI as a strategic thought partner. I know, for myself personally, there's not a day that goes by that I'm not in ChatGPT, just brainstorming and using it for additional strategic thinking. But as technology and AI technology is definitely improved in the last year, could you share some of the major changes you've been seeing, working with leaders across all different industries through the AI leadership work you're doing?
Sure. If we go back a year, every leader knew AI was the future, but they didn't know where to start. They felt they were falling behind. I think that's still true. And what I am seeing is, instead of a year ago where they literally had done nothing, everybody's in motion now. But what I'm really seeing is it's very tactical. And we're talking specifically at a leadership level, like C-suite. Everybody has access to ChatGPT or to Copilot or to Gemini, to some type of large language model. How they are using it. I mean, I had a CEO maybe a little over a month ago say to me, it was right before I was about to go on stage at an event. He said, "I'm so sick of all you AI speakers." I said, "Oh, interesting. Tell me more." And he goes, "No offense, I'm none taken. I'm genuinely curious." And he said, "I've sat in so many of these sessions. All of them are doom and gloom, overly technical, or not relevant to my job as a CEO. Nobody has shown me that I personally need to be using this." And I said, "I really appreciate the perspective. Come talk to me after the session." That was a game changer for him. And I think that is still where people are at. They're focusing on tactical things. They have yet to move to the strategic in terms of how do we actually wield this technology to elevate us as leaders, to help us define strategy for how we're going to win and build a competitive moat, how we identify the skills that are going to be valuable for our workforce in the future, how we lead that kind of change. I mean, this is going to be your job as a leader. AI can be an amazing thought partner there. People haven't quite figured out how to wield it that way unless they've read my book.
Totally
and
agree. I just want to comment on one other thing. 2 weeks ago, I was invited to a CEO forum with one of the largest investment managers in the world. There was about 25 of us that are, running very, very large registered investment advisory firms. And the topic of AI came up, and they asked me to share a little bit of what I'm doing, both as a business leader and, to your point, kind of on the tactical side of execution. And I started talking about how much more of the benefits to me have been on the strategic thinking and thought partner side than the tactical execution. And I mentioned your book, and it was funny. Another CEO on the other side of the room stood up holding up your book also. And he was like, "Oh my God, I just ordered this book. Somebody else shared. I need to read it." And so I think to your point, what you have in that book is so relevant for anybody in a leadership role in an organization. But I think you're starting to catch a little momentum with it, because it seems like every conference I'm at where there's other CEOs, presidents, people that are in that strategic role, it always seems to be that your book is coming up, whether it's in entrepreneur organization or YPO groups or things
Yes.
like these CEO forums that I'm participating in. So the
It's
momentum is starting to get there.
I'm very grateful for that, and I don't take lightly how rare that actually is for a book to actually have a viral moment. So lots of gratitude.
Awesome.
and
Awesome.
Jeff, I was gonna say, I'll double back to what Dave said, is like that session made a difference for me personally, because I was an active user of like Chat GPT and some of the other tools prior to doing that session with you. But that was that kind of light bulb moment for me as well, of using it as a strategic thought partner versus like, how do I just do these tactical things more efficiently? But how do I do everything more efficiently?
Yes.
And shifting towards that model. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing. I focus a lot more on the marketing and business development side here, and we're seeing a lot of the firms that we work with adopt more of the AI into their content and their marketing, because that's where you start a lot on the tactical side, and we're encouraging our advisors to do the same. But that being said, what do you think separates those that are just experimenting with it, like I talked about what I was doing earlier on, from those that are using it to drive meaningful results?
There's two answers to this. One is the mindset, and two is the practice. Mindset wise, instead of which most people still are using this like a really smart Google to ask questions to, or like an assistant to help them write a better email or draft marketing communication or social media copy. And the thing is, like, I give these people double high fives because they're in motion. That's what matters. They're in motion. And then what I want them to understand is that they're focusing on the 80% tasks that drive 20% of the value. Good that you started. Now, what would happen if you raised your standards? What would happen if instead of focusing on the 80%ers that only drive the 20%, you just shifted your focus and put a spotlight on the 20% priorities that drove 80% of the results? So that's the mindset side, is to say, I'm going to focus on the 20% that drives the 80%. I'm not going to worry as much about the 80. What is that 20%? Vision, strategy, leadership. Vision. What is your vision for the future of the company? According to Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, everything you know about your business is going to change in the next 5 years. And he said that a year ago. And I think I saw an image maybe a month ago. It was a picture of Fifth Avenue in New York City in 1900. It was all horse and buggy and one car. I then saw another picture of Fifth Avenue in New York City, 0 horse and buggy, 100% cars. That shift from all horse and buggy to 100% car was just 13 years. But seeing the visual of going from legacy ways of acting to future state in 13 years and going, okay, he's saying this is going to happen in 5 years or less. And he said that a year ago. I think people are grossly underestimating how much things are going to change. And I can't tell you what that's going to look like. And I think even asking what's that going to look like, I think it's the wrong question, because nobody has a crystal ball. What does matter is you getting in the game. So the mindset, we're going to focus on the 20%. Mindset, everything I know about my company is going to change. Therefore, it is my job as a leader to have a level of capability and competence around AI so I can define the vision for the future. I can identify what is our strategy going to be for how we are going to win and compete in the market. And how am I going to lead that change when everything's going to change? That's mindset. Practice is, you got to start using it yourself. Once a day, you got to pick something you're already doing that matters. And instead of asking, how can I do this? Start asking, how can AI help me do this? And just start to engage it as a thought partner.
You know, and sometimes it's, to your point, the little things to get people moving. I know we've done that even across like our advisors over the last 8 months or so. One of the things that we wanted to do is like almost push them in a direction where they saw the productivity benefits. And the easiest way for us to do that was like we rolled out a compliant AI note taker and assistant that, you know, had our entire holistic wealth management process built out into templates around like what we do in our first meeting, second meeting, third meeting. So it helps them be more efficient, to be able to delegate tasks, to have more comprehensive notes, to be able to prep for client updates. Like you said, that's, you know, call it the 80%. But, you know, for advisors now that are, you know, kind of dipping their toe in the water there and they're seeing tremendous benefits, what do you think some of the kind of next steps are, you know, to be able to move from just beyond like time saving activities to value adding activities?
There's 3 core skills that I think matter for you to be able to wield this strategically and get high value. One is you have to be able to identify a 20% strategic use case. If you want this to be your Google, it can be your Google. You want this to be your assistant, it can be your assistant. You want it to be the chairman of your board, you want it to act as a strategic thought partner, it can do that. So can you first start to identify 20% priorities that matter? Tech doesn't matter until you can identify the place to aim it that does. So that's number 1. Number 2 is, can you communicate effectively with AI? I have a prompt framework called CRIT, context, role, interview, task. I mean, I literally use it for every prompt I write. I give AI lots of context. I assign it a role where I ask it to act as an expert in whatever area. I then turn the tables and have it interview me. Ask me one question at a time, up to 3 questions to gain deeper context. That's super important. And then task, what do you want it to do? If you can identify a 20% strategic use case, you can communicate effectively with CRIT. And then skill 3, can you stay in the driver's seat as the thought leader with AI as your thought partner? AI hallucinates. It makes things up, where people ask it to generate an executive summary of something, and then they judge it when it's not perfect. It's not about it being perfect. You got to think of this like tennis or pickleball. Like, you write the prompt, you hit the ball over the net. It's going to return it with an answer. the job is not to be perfect. It's for you as thought leader to evaluate what you like about it, what you don't like about it, the changes you want, and you hit the ball back and you go back and forth in partnership with this technology where you are able to deliver way higher quality results in a fraction of the time.
I just want to share, Matt, just to piggyback on that, a couple things. Like, I think one of the mistakes also that I've seen people make is, they don't maybe do some of the legwork up front to help AI get to know them and their business. I know, like, when I saw a huge improvement, we work with Chat GPT, and so, for me, I think I probably took an entire day just to upload as much of the information about our business, our vision, our strategy, how we operate, myself, my background. To your point, Jeff, telling it to ask me additional questions, one question at a time, until I felt like it had a really good understanding of, what makes me tick as a human and as a leader, some of my strengths, my weaknesses, and our business in general. And, one of the things that was really mind blowing to me, sometimes I geek out on like what some of these really cool prompts are that when it responds back, you just say, wow. And there was a lady I follow. She used to be a colleague of my brother. Her name is Fiji. She just took over as the CEO of application for OpenAI. And I saw a tweet or an X or whatever they call it now that she put out. And one of the things that it said in this prompt was, tell me something incredibly special or unique you've noticed about me, but you think I haven't realized about myself yet. And so, like, that prompt, what came out of that was really, really cool. But it was actually the next prompt as a leader that was more impressive. So it came back and it told me about how great I am and all these things. And it made me feel really good, like as you could imagine it would. But then I prompted it to tell me my blind spots you've noticed about me, but you think I haven't realized about myself yet. Pick consistent themes, not extrapolations of a couple of chats. And I'll tell you what, the information that prompt gave back to me just helped me continue to realize where some of my blind spots are as a leader, as a person, as a husband, as a father. Like, it was incredible. And I think, to your point, Jeff, like, that was a big aha moment that you even brought to me, because I was doing the 80% for years in some of these tools. I was even using it as a thought partner in many cases, but like, I was never really using it on that like massive professional and personal development side to help me think through ways I can kind of get better as a human. And so some of it's just so mind blowing what it comes back with and how you can apply that to your personal and professional life.
Yeah, and Dave, like, to that point, using it beyond just Q&A, but having you like using it to pull things out of you that like you said, you didn't even realize. And I like, Jeff, you mentioned this too, like not expecting it to be perfect, having that back and forth dialogue and building on the prompts. Like early on, I'll admit I was doing, I'm sure most people were, that early on you put the prompt in, you get your response, you run with it. But the more you have a dialogue, the more refined it becomes.
Sure.
Dave, I was actually going to ask you to tell your story from, remember our annual meeting, you were actually asking it to, I think it was like some financial modeling. And when you asked it to show its work, remember that? When it,
Yeah.
if you wouldn't mind, I don't want to steal your glory there. If you could share that story real quick.
Well, but I think that's so important because I think, the first step that I've seen our team do is they take whatever it says as gospel, right? And so, like, I asked it this, a little bit more complex, financial, it was analyzing some of like our KPIs in our business, right? To, like, more financially data related. And then I came back and said, go ahead and show your work on how you arrived at this. And guess what it did? It said, oops, I made a mistake. Here's the right answer. So again, like, you keep to Jeff, and again, I think, Jeff shared that, like, he used the word hallucination. Sometimes it's not completely accurate, but the cool thing is having that conversation and say, now show me how you arrived at getting there, or double check your work. Can you go back and double check these numbers are all 100% accurate? And what you'll find is it'll go back and figure out maybe some mistakes that it made.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll give you an example of a highly strategic use case. I can't remember if we talked about this in the last episode. Did we talk about the AI board that I built for myself?
You briefly mentioned it, but share it because I think it's so critical.
As a founder and a CEO, it's lonely at the top. And I'm very clear that there's all the books that I've read. And then there's, the amount that I can actually recall and apply, which is less than 0.1%. These AI models so far have been trained on anywhere from 200 to 500 million books worth of data. And it can recall 100% of it in under a second. I started thinking, okay, I have access to expertise of the world. How might I package this and harness this in a way that will help me achieve my goals? And so I built my own AI board. I gave it my 10-year goals for the company. I gave it our strategic plan. I gave it our KPIs, culture documents, my strengths and weaknesses as a CEO. Like, I fed it tons of context, Dave, to your point. Like, you gotta make the investment in it learning about you. I then had it interview me to identify what are the strengths that I would need to acquire if I were to assemble a real board to advise me over the next 10 years. And it interviewed me and it spat out a list. I didn't agree with everything, but I narrowed it down to what I wanted on the board. And then I had it research famous business leaders who exemplify those skills. And then I built personality profiles for them. And some of them are specific people and some of them are blends. So like I have a dedicated personality profile for Steve Jobs. He is there to advise me on vision, on product design, and on storytelling. He is specifically never allowed to talk to me about being a husband, a father, or a leader, because I'm not interested in his advice there. I have Warren Buffett on my board for long-term planning and risk mitigation. I have my future self on the board, a vision of who I want to be 30 years in the future so I can talk with the man I want to become today. Like, those are examples of dedicated profiles. We have a product market fit assortment where I've pulled in different people and blended them together into a product market fit persona. So these are on my AI board. So something that happened since we talked. January, we had our first offsite for the AI-driven leadership collective. This is our executive network of C-level leaders in May, we had over 120 in the room, but this was our January one. I think we were at 55 then. I realized walking out of there, our whole business model was going to break this year because we were scaling way faster than I thought. And as the CEO, it's like, okay, you got to fix this. But instead of asking, how can I fix this? I thought, how can AI help me? So I actually went to my AI board, context, role, interview, task, crit. Context. We just had our offsite for the collective. We had 55 people in the room. Based on everything we're going, here's where I'm seeing we're going to scale this year, which means this system, this system, this system, this system. They're all going to break. In fact, our entire business model is going to break this year. Yet I am unrelenting on our business plan this year and on our 10-year vision. Your role is to act as the board. I want you to conduct a detailed interview of me. Ask me one question at a time, as many questions as you need to ask to gain deeper context about what's happening. Your task is to generate 100 alternative business models you think would better scale to hit our 10-year vision with less effort. That's a strategic use case. Now, first and foremost, how long do you think it would have taken me to come up with 100 alternative business models?
A year.
At some point, I would have run out of ideas.
Couldn't have done it. Impossible.
Yeah.
Could not have, would it exceed my capacity as a human.
Yeah.
AI conducts an interview and generates 100 alternative business models in seconds. I then said, great, now be the board and imagine these weren't your ideas. Somebody just presented these 100 to you. I want you to interview me, ask me one question at a time, up to 5 questions to gain deeper context. And I want you to collapse the 100 to the top 10. And I want you to list them in order of recommendation and tell me why. I did this while I was driving. Because I was in voice mode and I was actually talking to it back and forth. By the time I pulled into my driveway, it gave me a non-obvious insight where it said the collective is the right core model of the business. And I think the way you have it right now will scale. But for you to actually scale to where you want to go, I think you should be looking at enterprise collectives where you embed, instead of getting 100 to 120 different CEOs or COOs into a cohort, what if you just embedded this in a Fortune 500 company and you got their top 100 or 200 leaders and you became their internal AI center of excellence and drove the transformation of the whole company? I would have never thought of that. It gave me that. We're now piloting it.
That's incredible.
That's such a good story.
Thanks for tuning in. This podcast was brought to you by C2P, an organization whose purpose is to educate, train, grow, and support holistic financial advisors so families can achieve true prosperity. Never miss an episode by subscribing now to discover new resources and strategies. Visit c2penterprises.com to learn how we can help scale and secure your business. At the time of delivery and any subsequent publishing, information was deemed reliable, but is subject to change by the time of listening or viewing. The contents of this piece include options and projections of C2P, are subject to change, and are for informational purposes only. The information provided in this presentation is not intended to be individual investment, tax, or legal advice.